Podcast. I am your host, as always, Chad Porto, and joining me is the co-host of this extravagant event, the glorious one himself, Marcus Green. Marcus, how are you?
Good, good. We've feels weird doing this on a Thursday. It's been a while.
Yeah. It's been a while since we've been on Thursday. There was a part of me that was hoping we would have a little bit of a Snyder cut conversation, but I didn't watch it yet. I'm actually gonna watch it after I do a little bit of work for tomorrow. So
Yeah,
I'll probably hit it around 1 in the morning or so and close out my night doing that. Gotta go get some food and some snackaramas. Gonna get my blanket because it's
yeah.
been kind of cold in Ohio. Like it was like high 30s and it was raining all day. I don't mind that actually. Like I'm very much a fan of the gloomy weather. I'm a fan of the snowfall because it gives me a reason to curl up with a blanket and just be like, yeah, fuck the world, FTW, Taz this bitch. I just threw up my hoodie on purpose, trying to be cool, like, ah, yeah, Taz, and it nearly knocked my headset off. The pratfalls that we do on air, it's marvelous. So we have a lot of non-WWE stuff. Real briefly, Charlie Caruso got taken off TV for some reason. I think it was because she was like pissing people off, and I'm just like, she's gorgeous, so yeah, she probably does piss people off. Because the prettier someone is, be it guy or gal or in between, you just always
Look, man,
know that
she's
there's just something there. Like, you just know that they're kind of a douchebag. Like, Randy Orton, giant douchebag.
yeah. It's I mean, look, she's highly intelligent. Clearly knows what she's doing at a job, as she has multiple, including ones at ESPN. And she wears those tight dresses, and most of those people at that company are either married or trying to be. So it's interesting. I don't know who she pissed off because she's probably one of the better people on the mic, but it's not. We know the history. It don't take much.
No, it does not. There's a show that I've always encouraged people to watch. It's a little bit highbrow, but it's very entertaining. It's called The Newsroom. And Olivia Munn's on it. She plays a well-educated, financial, like, doctorate kind of person who's working in cable news to try to educate people on economics. And she's like one of those, like, I do this because I want people to learn. I could make, 10 times the money for half the work, a quarter mile down the street, referring to Wall Street. But, like, I want people to learn. That's why I do this. So she's reading through her emails one day when they're stuck on a plane, and she reads one off, and her name's Miss Sabbath on the show, or Sabbath, Sloan Sabbath, and she's the email goes, Miss Sabbath, when I watch you on the news and your buttons are down, you are very unladylike. If you poured water on yourself on the news, I'd like that too. And she just kind of like looks up awkwardly, having read it out loud, and looks at those random women and goes, "It's a fan." I feel like that's Charlie Caruso sometimes. Like, she's damned if she does or damned if she doesn't. I don't know, man. Like, the whole thing's kind of interesting because, like, who do you have to piss off when you're that attractive and that good for TV to get taken off TV for some random dude? What did you do to get, pissed off, piss someone off? Like, I don't know. Like, that's interesting right there. But also Vince McMahon, like, being, like, super into COVID protocols right now when he's also trying to have a near jam-packed WrestleMania. And he's mad that people aren't following the rules. And he's like, yeah, we're going to put them nuts to butts in this stadium. And I'm like, that's like saying you guys need to be careful not to do a forest fire as you're cooking grease and throwing water on it to put out a fire. Like, what?
It's funny. You said nuts to butts, and I immediately imagine AJ Styles' eyebrows shooting up like, what?
Hey, come here.
But it's like, yeah, John Caruso, did they give you a reason for why you got sidelined? Apparently, I didn't wink back at Michael Hayes.
Oh.
Because that guy is still a thing.
Right. I always forget he's still part of this company. Speaking of things that we forgot were still part of a company, let's talk about an entire company that we thought was no longer a company. So, as you see, NWA, it's the first true topic of the show. It's kind of one of those things where I'm both kind of excited for it, but also more in a more morbid sense. Like, how are you going to come back after you lost all of your top stars? Zicky Dice was one of their up-and-comers. He's gone. Mr. Anderson's gone. James Storm, gone. Eli Drake, gone. Unfortunately, Josephus passed away. And then, I'm sure there's other names, but like you're looking at the lineup for it. There's 6 matches. It'll probably be 8 overall. And they're not bad, but there's also like just kind of makes you wonder, go, is this the best you can do? So apparently, financially, they're in a better place than many expected. They agreed on a new deal with Fight TV. So like all their programming is going to be airing on there, if I remember correctly. I don't know if this is the standout showcase card for a return, but it's what they're giving us. So I guess we got to take it. So we'll run down through this and kind of just judge it. It's holy shit! It's this weekend.
Oh, God's sake! Give us a, we need these days for a 4-hour movie. You don't need to understand. We understand, but oh, okay.
It is what it is, I guess. So we're 3 days away. It's the 21st, so it's going to be on a Sunday. 4 days away, 3.5 days, whatever. So here's the card as it stands right now. I'm sure there'll be 1 or 2 more matches. First up, we have an NWA National Championship match. It's Trevor Murdoch versus Chris Adonis, the former Chris Masters. So I'm not sure how I feel about this one. I don't know. There's nothing bad to say about him. He's never been someone that I think has the charisma needed to get over, even when he was in Impact, and usually when you go to Impact, they find a way of making you something better than you were, and he was just a underling for Eli for most of his run. So, like, I don't know. It's cool that he's back, I guess, because he always seems like a good guy, and no one ever says anything bad about him, but also, why? It's WWE in 2005. Yeah. That's all this card is. That's all I keep thinking.
It's not a good roster. That's not a good roster because I got a game with that roster and I've never been proud of it. But yeah, it's interesting. I haven't seen Masters since his time in WWE. I've always heard some people talk about how much more talented he got in the latter half before he left because he had time to grow. I think we talked about it. He was one of those guys that got called up way too soon, way too early.
He was up, I think, at 20.
Yeah, and obviously he had the look, which was a very specific look. And I'm pretty sure it got Vince up in the morning. But he basically became a gimmick around one move, and it's the true irony in the fact that the guy that broke the move now has taken over the move. And Lashley. Is some serendipitous there, but yeah, hopefully retain because I just think he's like I think we talked about this too. He's probably one of those guys that fits best not only with the theme but the overall aesthetic of what the NWA was when it was on and I guess going strong on YouTube. So and the fact that he's one of those names that stayed, and I think he kind of got convinced to come back because I think he was going to be done with wrestling. And he came back, and I think he's kind of found his groove with NWA. So hopefully the match is good. Hopefully Masters has kind of honed his craft a little bit more, and I think that's an interesting matchup.
Yeah, he was actually out of wrestling when the NWA relaunched in 2019. So when he came back alongside, the new promotion, it was kind of like, this is interesting. Let's see how it goes. And he wasn't the only one. Jazz came back for the NWA, and I think so did C.W. Anderson. So they have a great ability to try to get people to show up, and it's kind of impressive, truthfully. I'm hoping that stays the same. Like whoever was getting those guys to show up, I hope those cats can actually still, goose the wheel, so to speak, and bring them into the forefront because that's where wrestling needs to succeed is not just in, getting your CM Punks or your Rob Van Dams or whoever. It's, getting your Rene Dupree's, or, going outside the circle and getting like a Bob Sapp, or, even though he gets crapped on for it, WWE going to get Bad Bunny, who's basically been on TV as much as anyone for the last 2 months, was a great idea. I don't think it's working because they don't know how to use them, but wrestling isn't just about wrestlers, it's about personalities. And if you don't have the personalities on your roster, you got to go get them. If you don't have the wrestlers on your roster, you got to go get them. It doesn't matter where you go to get them. You have to. So I hope the NWA can still do that with getting people to show up and whatnot. So
Yeah, we talk about it too. WWE's never had a talent problem. They've had a talent usage problem.
God knows that's the truth. And it hasn't changed in like 15 years. Speaking of 15 years, that's where all this roster came from. Speaking of 15 years in WWE time, Tyrus, who's like 50 and significantly overweight. So I don't know how anyone thinks that's a good idea. He's going to be having a problem moving at his size. He's going to be on the card against JR Kratos, who has been on the NWA before and has getting a lot of traction on the New Japan American arm of shows. What is it? New Japan Power? Not Power. Strong. It's New Japan Strong or something like that.
That'll be so jacked up if they took the New Japan Power. We took it.
Well, to be fair, it's not power. It's purr.
Oh, it's not McDonald's. It's McDonald's.
It's McDonald's. And it's not Golden Arches. It's an M. As I told the people from McDonald's every time.
That dude say they got the McFlurry. We have the McFlurby. We put our toppings on the bottom.
It's completely different. Have you seen the sequel yet?
I have.
Does it hold up?
Man. To me,
yes.
I think you can't read. I mean, the first one is Lightning in the Bottle, absolute cult classic. But I think they do a good job at following it up for me. But your boy Blade steals the show.
Does he?
Yeah.
To be fair, my boy's Arsenio Hall. He's from Cleveland. But I get what you mean.
Yeah.
Did you show up at any point in the movie going, surprise, motherfuckers?
He might as well add from some of his mannerisms. But I think what he did was hilarious. Because people were like, I never associated, when I was reading some review, I never associated Wesley Snipes with comedy. I'm like, have you watched Blade?
It's all a dark comedy. All right, so I know he doesn't, but in my head, I've now booked Wesley Snipes' character to be a manager at McDonald's, next in line to take over the franchise, right? So he rolls up to the counter when someone's complaining, and he puts a tray down of fries and goes, "Some fries, motherfucker." Just walks away.
It's not that. That would be hilarious, but it's not that. This teeny spoiler. He's from a place called Nextdoria.
I have a feeling that he has a running issue with Zamunda.
Yeah.
I'm excited now. I like that. I like that a lot. All right, so Tyrus taking on JR Kratos. Any thoughts on this one?
I will never root for Tyrus because it's Tyrus. And let's be quite fair, even if I hated both, Kratos has a better name. So
he really does.
Yeah, I'm going with Kratos. I'm looking forward to watching him for the first time. Tyrus, wasn't he like on Fox or something? Go back there.
He can't. He got fired for sexual harassment.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh wow. All right.
Yeah. Did you see Stacey Dash repented?
I'm like, yo. You...
Well, what's great now is I can find her attractive again. Because I always had a thing for her. Then she started talking in 2009. I'm like, Stace, why? Don't ruin me.
But that's what killed it. Like she was like a icon for us at one time. Because she was kind of that girl like up there with like Robin Givens from Boomerang and others. But she just threw it all down the drain to hop on a train she thought was gonna stay on the tracks, and now that it's derailed. She trying to spin the narrative, but sorry, you get no cookout invitations over here.
So I forgot that Robin Givens was in Boomerang, so I had to Google her.
Look, man, her in that movie, we already talked about Cameron Diaz is peak beauty in The Mask.
Mm-hmm.
What happened? But
Marissa Tomei and My Cousin Vinny.
Oh, so she still got it in a lot of ways. You know who else still got it? And she got a new show coming out called Rebel. Katie Seagal.
Katie Seagal, really?
Yeah, Jackson's mom from
Right.
Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay.
She's got to be in her 60s now. Is this Rebel show going to be any interesting? Because I assume you saw some type of trailer for it.
Yeah, I saw the advertisement on TV, and maybe it's because she had a hell of a makeup artist, and of course on Sun she was supposed to be this grunge-looking, biker mom, but yeah, she holds up quite well.
Well, look at that. So does Halle Berry. Like, damn.
And yeah, man. Some people just age back. It's ridiculous.
I absolutely adore that she's just posting all these like not lewd photos, but like provocative photos on like her social media accounts, just to kind of like, yeah, you think I'm done at 50?
Her, Angela Bassett, I love the occasional flexes. Like y'all do know I'm still out here with it, right? Like,
good for them. Good for the girls. All right, speaking of people that you don't want to say good for, Thom Latimer's back. Yay. Thumb. Are you going to hop in a Japanese ice cream freezer again, Thom?
oh my
Did you know?
God.
Do you remember that?
No. I was thinking about other dumb stuff.
So I think it was Moose, Eddie, and Bram went over to Noah for a tour. Could be wrong. It may have been just Eddie and Bram, Thom Latimer. And apparently they were doing like a tag league kind of thing over there. And Latimer got drunk. At least that's how the story goes. And because there's like a lot of late night convenience stores that are open in metro parts of Japan, they went into one like around midnight or so, and Thom crawled into an ice cream freezer and just like laid there laughing. And the owner's like, "What are you doing? This is, you're ruining my food. Get the hell out." And I think it was Noah. It may have been Noah or All Japan. I don't remember. I think it was Noah, though. And Noah saw the photo that Thom and his buddies posted the day before. And they're like, "You're going home. You're so fucking disrespectful. That's not how we play here in Japan." And I'm like, I never wanted to live in that country more than right now. Because I would love to have a country that practices and preaches respect for the people around you. What a great idea. Where can we place that into our society, I wonder? But, so ever since then, I thought he was a piece of shit, so.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, you put that on top of just other random instances, but yeah, as I got older, I just severely dislike. It's a thing for me, like when I see people waste food or hit stores like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what kind of a-hole you got to be to put your ass on top of ice cream?
Those fudge bars don't need any help.
Yeah.
So Latimer's taking on Elijah Burke. We already know who I'm pulling for. It says Elijah Burke. I thought it was D'Angelo De Niro. Did he change his name back? Oh, that was always his real name.
Yeah, I mean, I knew that was his real name, but also, I mean, obviously, that has a little bit more swag. And was he going by D'Angelo in
No, he's going by
NW?
the Pope.
Oh yes, the Pope. Okay. So maybe he separates them because I mean, we already know that they can have their names from Impact. So
right.
Yeah. So maybe that's just a sticking point. So.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he wants to try something different. I love the Pope though. Like, it's such a great name.
Yeah.
He's defending his TV title. again, this is one of those, like, I don't hate it, but it could have been so much better. Of course, we're pulling for Burke. I mean, we love Pope. He's a great commentator. He's a great talker. He's a good wrestler. Like, he's fantastic.
Yeah, we talk about guys like him, Coleman, some other names. But who's his opponent?
It's Thom. It's Bram.
Oh,
it's for the TV title. Elijah Burke's defending it against Latimer.
That's an absolute no-brainer.
Yep. Then we got Thunder Rosa versus Camille. The winner will be the #1 contender for the NWA Women's World Championship. If Thunder Rosa is signing with AEW full-time, Camille's going to win. If she's not wrestling full-time with AEW, I could see Thunder Rosa winning. So, we'll see here. But they, even before the break, they were really building up Camille as a powerhouse.
Mm-hmm.
So this isn't anything new to see her in this position. They could easily be running with her as the next face of the women's division because they've lost Jazz, they lost Tasha Steelz. They kind of had Serena Deeb when they were doing the Pro Wrestling Federation live nonsense, in the summer. So I could see them, pivoting to Camille if they think she's going to stick around. So, what about you?
Yeah, man. I mean, actually that's probably the first match that we've listed that I'm really actually excited to see because that's like David versus Goliath right there.
Yeah.
And we know Thunder doesn't back down from anything. She just had a killer match with Britt Baker of all people on AEW. But yeah, I mean, right there with you. In my mind, Thunder Rosa kind of wants to, kind of play fast and loose, keep herself as free as possible. Because I think we talked about not only does she fight, but she also I think runs some promotions or runs events.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly when it comes to the women's side of things in wrestling. So, I don't know if she want to be locked down too much, but I would imagine they want to lock her down because she's that phenomenal of a talent. But yeah, like I said, I imagine she wants. Yeah, I don't know what she want to do, but I'm looking forward to this match. When it comes to Camille, I can absolutely see her winning because, like you said, the roster's depleted. I mean, you going to your list of names, like they lost Melina.
Mm-hmm.
They had Allison Kay. I don't know what she's doing. Like you said, Deeb. Steelz is thriving, thankfully.
I think a lot of them, truthfully, it's not so much that they lost them, it's that I guess we're not sure if they're coming back because Melina's not signed anywhere. Allison Kay's not signed anywhere. Marty Bell's not signed anywhere. But they did lose Steelz and Jazz, and I think they lost one to AEW. That's not like a death blow. Like you can recover from that. It just, who's going to come back?
Yeah. So, and to that point, if Rosa is now somebody they can lock down and they're trying to make a foothold to come back, Camille has been there. It seems like and also I would imagine because she's pseudo attached to Aldis at the same time and that whole gimmick, that helped. But, I think you might want more loyalty. And also make a strong statement in terms of your division. If she has the chops to do that, I'd pull the trigger. But I would also like to see a hell of a match, like not a squash, because Thunder Rosa is not a chick you squash.
No, not at all. The only time you would want to do a squash with Thunder Rosa is if it was to put over Camille in a massive way right before she wins the title. There's certain times when you can do that, but it has to have a point. Like when Lesnar squashed Cena, it was to put over how great Lesnar was. But Cena was also at a point where he could eat a loss like that and not hurt his perception because part of the perception was to elevate Brock beyond them. So if that's how they wanted to do Camille, I could understand it, but it would need to be done so delicately in the most self-aware way possible. Like you'd have to nail it, like because you don't want to hurt Thunder Rosa. You want to elevate Camille, and like that's the thing. People kind of view wrestling as, like a scale, like one of those dual hanging scales. If you take a win from one person and give it to the other, it throws the balance of the scale off. But that's not always true. It should be kind of considered as like a bar graph. Like here's Thunder Rosa, but we want to make Camille seem a little bit beyond Thunder Rosa because we want to build up Camille. It doesn't need to reduce Thunder Rosa's stock. It just needs to raise Camille's. And too many people don't know how to do that with booking. And I think that's part of the problem.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about that all the time, and I guess one of the more recent examples would be, breaking the streak.
Mm-hmm.
Taker could have, that obviously, diehards would be like, you preserve something like that because you just don't have it in the business anymore. Not like the way that he did it, because how many people get better later in their career, but um, well, at a certain later part in his career, but obviously he could have afforded to give that one win away, but was brought that right guy because ultimately he did not need it.
Mm-hmm.
He really killed half the roster, and then got to Taker, and we absolutely love the build up to that match, but ultimately putting somebody over with that one because it's not like he goes around bragging on being the one. You can still have that as a storyline today, going around pissing people off. Like, I'm the guy that beat the guy. I'm the one, literally. So
I'm the one in 21-1, or
exactly.
now it's 24-2. I'm gonna make a controversial statement, and it's not an opinion; it's a fact. It's a fact that I believe to be an opinion. That might be a fact, but could also be an opinion. The Undertaker's streak is the most overrated thing in wrestling history because only like 4 of those matches are any good. Before Randy Orton, I don't think he had a good WrestleMania match, in my opinion. I think he came close a few times. Like the Triple H and Ric Flair matches of the early 2000s were fine.
Yeah.
But I don't see anyone going, oh, it's a really good match, WrestleMania 17, Undertaker versus Triple H. No, it was long and boring. And then like WrestleMania 27, terrible. Another long and boring Triple H match. That's not to say they're all bad. But like, look at some of the guys he wrestled, like Kevin Nash. Nash had a lot of really good matches in TNA, so it's not like he was done, especially in '96. He wrestled Mark Henry. That was a snooze fest. That was a clunker. And look who Henry became. Thinking about Triple H and Flair, those weren't great. The Shawn Michaels ones were good. Even though I'm not a fan of those, I can objectively notify that they are good. And then the Hell in a Cell match with Triple H was fantastic. The CM Punk one was fine. Bray Wyatt's was terrible. Yeah. Roman's was terrible. Cena's was terrible. Brock's was okay at best, but that was partly because he got concussed midway through.
Yeah, yeah. One of my all-time favorites is the one, and I liked it because I want to go back and watch it on Twitter. Was the one that match he had with Batista?
Okay, yeah, that one's stellar. That may have been his best.
Yeah, that was great. But like I said, and to your point, because they didn't even start it really doing the thing as a streak until like you said, I think the Orton feud.
Mm-hmm.
So, you condense a lot of those matches. There's, the ones up into the Orton feud, which was not really that good, hit or miss. Then you got that square from Orton to a certain point where it was like, okay, this really is something. Then this latter half is basically defined by a bunch of matches he shouldn't have even been in. Because these matches are like, okay, how effed up were you there? And that's not a good way to define a stretch of matches, but that's basically what it came to. Now, for it to end with what they did with Styles, I think was probably the best compromise that you could get with, where he was at that point physically. I think he had lost his brother the day before, so that was a thing, and then that was his like first cinematic situation ever. So, it was a culmination of things. But yeah, like you said, I think there is some overratedness to it. But how they messed up the record ain't no better either.
No, not even a little. All right, so finishing out the last 2 matches that we have for this event, Crimson and Jax Dane are they're not in a tag match, but they are a tag team. It's a 4 corners match. It's going to be Crimson versus Jax Dane versus Jordan Clearwater versus Slice Boogie. Jordan Clearwater and Slice Boogie are Championship Wrestling from Hollywood / what was the other one? What is it called? United Wrestling Network competitors. So they're out from the West Coast. That's kind of like the NWA feeding ground. I've seen both guys. I like both guys. Slice Boogie kind of has like a Anthony Bowens meets Homicide aesthetic. He's a kind of a more darker tanned. Maybe he's Hispanic or maybe he's biracial. I don't know. But he wears a lot of like, I think it's like a Puerto Rican flag, I think. Let me double check. Slice Boogie. Google. Image.
Cool name, Slice Boogie.
It's not a Puerto Rican flag. That's my bad. It's a New York Knicks jersey. So it might as well just be a trash bag.
Now I'm about to say that it should have been a flag.
They're actually in the playoffs this year. I shouldn't tease the Knicks. Because we don't know when they're going to be back in the playoffs. But he's definitely got a nice aesthetic, in great shape, really athletic. Not really athletic, because I think we use the term really athletic way too loosely. Like, Will Ospreay and Ricochet are really athletic. He's very good. He has a sense of athleticism that works for him. Then we have, the other one is Jordan Clearwater. He's pretty athletic. I think he's maybe more athletic than Slice Boogie, but he doesn't have Slice. I hate saying his name. It sounds so stupid. Slice Boogie. He doesn't have Slice Boogie's definition in his body tone. Like, Slice Boogie's like like he looks like Anthony Bowens in so many ways, but I think he's a different ethnicity. But he's thick. You know, he's got big old muscle arms. And Jordan Clearwater's kind of more like the new postmodern X Division type of wrestler. You know, like, he's not big, but he's defined, and he's athletic, but he's not like super crazy or well known for his stunts. They're both really good hands. I'm kind of perplexed that this is a four corners match, considering they don't have much of a tag team division anymore. You know, Boogie and Clearwater could have been a tag team, but I don't know. It's not my fucking event. And Crimson and Jack Stane, like, I love Jack Stane. Oh, Jack Stane, he's a big old boy, big hoss boy.
Hoss, yeah.
Yeah, hoss power. And then Crimson is just kind of there. The little brother of Amazing Red.
We'll never forget. We will never forget.
No, and we will never forgive.
Like, speaking of undefeated streaks.
Oh! No! I was so convinced that it was going to be Goldberg to end his undefeated streak. I had built it up in my head. Oh, my God.
You really did. I'm like, my friend really is going to down this hill. I don't know if it's... I'm like, and I know it's to do with Goldberg. It's also Goldberg. Because Crimson, you get none of this like. But it's like, you really going to go out on me.
I was so disappointed when James Storm walked out.
Like, replaced who that was they replaced that year, Brian, when they was like damn near screeching out for him. They replaced him with Paul Mysterio.
Oh God. I was Mick Foley destroying the TV when James Storm came out that day. You should have brought back Goldberg or brought in Goldberg. Trash. So this
was evil because you had your hopes up that much and then all you hear is sorry about your town.
Oh, the irony. Like I probably just stared at the screen, like slanted. I'm like my face is away, and I'm like slanting my eyes to the other side, like.
It's basically that Simpsons gift from Homer backing into the bushes, but with the Dinkelberg face for you.
James Storm. So this match should be entertaining. Clearwater and Boogie are really talented. I like Jack Stane, Crimson, and we'll see. I don't know why it's a four corners match, and I don't know what they're doing with the NWA Tag Team titles. I don't even know who the NWA Tag Team champions are. I think it was Stevens and Josephus.
Yeah, I won't say well because I'm remembering back. I'm like, was it the Rock and Roll Express or did they drop them?
Oh, okay. No, it's I am right. It is Aaron Stevens, but it's JR Kratos. So they're both on the show, just in singles matches.
Oh, okay.
So they have no tag team division representation at the moment. No taxation without tag team representation. And then the main event, which Marcus and you and I are both going to be on the same train on this one. It's Nick Aldis versus Aaron Stevens. I got nothing. This is not a good matchup. Like, I think you would have done better putting in Kratos or Burke or Jax Dane or even Tim Storm. Hell, Trevor Murdoch.
This is one of those weird times. Like we about to watch this at a like real live event, Like we're not intentionally trying to make this a pseudo gay moment, but it's like I gotta go to the bathroom. Me too. I can't. It's just like I don't win in this scenario as a fan.
Nope.
Basically.
Not even slightly. Not even a little. Oh man, it's not a strong card.
Yeah, I just feel like it's automatically safe to say that all this is gonna retain. Like,
See, that's where I'm afraid. Like, think about it. Why else have Aaron Stevens in here unless Nick Aldis isn't going to be around? Like, I'm petrified that they're going to be doing a bunch of title changes because guys like Burke and Aldis might not be, sticking around. So I don't know, man.
it's weird though, cause like I feel like he wouldn't have the. I mean, he did come back to Impact, I guess, with the whole GFW thing.
Mm-hmm.
We know he. I don't even think he can get in WWE. I mean, they damn near put Mickey damn near retired Mickey, and AEW has enough. So I don't know. I feel like this is about as comfortable as you can get in terms of kind of, writing your own playbook, if you will, with him in that spot. But then again, with everything that's going on, who knows? So. But to go through everything they went through just for him to drop that to Stevens,
No, not
then
good.
then again, it could have, a real, speaking of going back to talking about Snyder earlier, a real nightmare scenario, I guess, would have alternatively been having dropped it to Scroll and then that allegation come out. Man, that could have been horrible.
Yeah, Nick is he's not among my favorites at the moment. Not even slightly. All right, speaking of favorites, I do who enjoy the work of Doug Williams. Doug Williams left wrestling not that long ago, and he's already talking about a comeback. Said basically, why am I retiring? I feel like I can still do it. I still want to do it, so why wouldn't I still do it? And I gotta say, I think this is it's not a bad thing. I think what this is kind of him realizing that guys like Sting and Dustin Rhodes, Ken Shamrock, Brock Lesnar's in his mid-40s at least, Undertaker, these guys are still going at it. So why would he walk away when the industry is changing their perceptions on the older talent? So he announced his retirement in 2018 before undergoing neck surgery, but he has stayed rooted in the business. Edge and is another one, and Christian. But he has stayed rooted in the business. Williams has appeared in 7 matches, but he was also advertised for a few appearances in 2020. His plans were ultimately canceled due to COVID-19, but Williams recently spoke with Dominic D'Angelo of WrestleZone to further elaborate on his decision to return. Quote, come 2019, I had neck surgery, and the result of that was I was getting strength back in my arms. The symptoms, not all of them, but the symptoms I was suffering from, most of those went away. I was quite happy with the limited involvement I had with wrestling post-retirement, where I do seminars, helping people working backstage at shows, helping out, and that sort of thing. But then obviously the pandemic hit, and we went into lockdown. So sitting here for a year doing absolutely nothing, not traveling, not going anywhere, it kind of really made me realize life's quite precious, and you should do the things you really enjoy doing, whilst you can still do it. And I think I can certainly still wrestle to a good level of ability. More importantly, I can help younger talent coming up refine their own skills and make them better wrestlers in the meantime. So there's the kind of deciding factors. The injuries were better. The sitting around doing nothing with a year of my life, like everybody else in the world. These are the kind of things that made me decide. So he goes on to say, if there's anything I do change about my style, it'll probably I'll have less. I'm having such a hard time reading. If there's anything I do change about my style, it's probably I'll have to do less knee drops because my knees are not what they used to be. So, thoughts on his return?
Oh man, God bless him. That was a good motivation. Imagine he typed that out. That was really cool to hear. I would imagine a lot of people have come to that type of discernment, if you will, during this pandemic, and kind of being cooped up and realizing things you you know, going down list of regrets, I guess. So, you know, sitting up looking at guys like Sting, Edge, D. Bryan, you know, guys like Rock and Roll Express still going. Would imagine PCO is an older guy, correct?
Yeah, he's in his
Um,
50s.
yeah, so you know, and a lot of other names. I mean, you see everything going on in AEW. So yeah, man. I mean, you can't, you know, if you can go, you know, get out there and do what you do, and obviously, like, you know, he's gonna dial stuff back, but that doesn't always mean that it is worse. You know, we've seen Styles tweak his game over time, and he's only gotten better.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, like he was one of the really great things. I don't know if they fully optimized everything he could have been when he was in Impact. But he certainly was a guy to watch, and I will never tire watching that Rolling Chaos from him.
Yeah.
So, you know, Rolling Chaos Theory. So, you know, more power to him, man. I hope you know, I hope he slide back to Impact.
Now, apparently, I don't have it in front of me, but I guess the thing was that he was going to be part of the Pure Tournament revival, but could not attend due to travel restrictions. I assume. He said that he was supposed to be part of the Pure Tournament. I don't remember him being involved or possibly being involved. That was never announced, so I guess maybe he was, but I'm assuming the rest. But you know, if he was supposed to come back for like a brief little spell, that's cool. I hope he can, because you know he's always been one of those guys that, yeah, I don't want to oversell this to a lot of people, but I know it's going to sound like it. Not in terms of popularity or name value, but in terms of what he did for the regional area, the wrestling perception for for you know the United Kingdom, and how talented he was. He was quite literally the United Kingdom's version of Bret Hart. Wasn't an overly great talker, but he was heavily influential in the styles of the area. Was well known for his ability to have a great match with anyone, and did things that people are still trying to copy to this day, just like Bret Hart. So, I'm hoping to see a lot more of him. Maybe we'll see him on Sunday at the NWA pay per view. We'll see. He's not the only one
Yeah.
coming back. Former 37 named Sean Waltman, 123 Kid, The Kid, X Pac, Six Pac. There's so many. He himself is contemplating a return to the ring as well. Talking to Justin Brasso of Sports Illustrated, Waltman went on to say, "I'd be psyched to have more matches in the WWE ring. If they're not interested, there are a lot of other places putting on great matches too. I didn't leave this business on my terms. I wasted a lot of years of my life wandering around in the darkness, but I'm grateful that I still have some time left, and the style has changed, which is good. The bumps are more meaningful in my era than in my era, which is a difference, excuse me. But they bump less. That extends your shelf life." The former WWF Tag Team Champions explained that once he's healthy, he thinks he could hold his own with today's wrestlers. I watch the product now, he says. And I think if I had both knees under me, I could keep up with these guys. He acknowledged that he's near the end of his career as an active wrestler, but he's confident that he can have a few matches. If people want me, I'll do it. But I'm also mindful of being an older guy taking up too much oxygen. That's not what I want. If there is some room for me to have a few matches, that's all I want. And honestly, between you and me, I would love to see him have another run in Impact. He's had a few runs that weren't always the best, but he's also kind of a founding father of the division. It was him, Jerry Lynn, AJ Styles, Loki. You know, who else? I think Psychosis was there. So to see him back, nearly 20 years later, trying to go with like Ace Austin, I think that'd be cool. I don't want him to be the face of the X Division, but even if it's just one or two matches, I think that'd be cool.
We talking about Pac, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think you know going against somebody like Ace Austin is perfect because he very much has that I'm the new wave, you old hat, you know. Then you can play into some other, of course, real life stuff. I'm just happy, to hear that somebody like Waltman is sober, and which I would imagine he's been for a while now, but you never know. Um, and yeah, I mean, it's cool. Like he's got a interesting wrestling lineage as well. So if he can still go, and come out there and do his thing. I mean, look, they got Dreamer there. Rhino played a part in Sacrifice. He's always doing his thing, so it'll be cool, man. I think just the concept of them bringing back the lineage with that TNA title, and then never not being open to bringing back guys. I mean, Storm's back there now, so that'll be something cool. We don't obviously need an over influx, but I think something like that specifically sliding into the X division when that's just heating up. I think that'll be like a cool little thing. So yeah.
Take a guess how old you think he is.
Is it this might be an overshot, but 55?
48.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, he's always been one of those younger wrestlers. I think he was always like 10 years younger than everyone else he was wrestling with, so it's kind of interesting. I can't wait to see what he's able to do. I know I'm looking forward to it. Let's see. So I just looked up CBR real fast, and apparently they've already cast the Naomi lead for the upcoming DC TV hero adaptation for the CW. If you don't know who Naomi is, it's fine. Her comic hasn't even debuted yet.
Well, they cast the actress already?
Yeah, and no one even knows who the character is yet. She's young. She's like 12 or something like that.
The actress?
Yeah, she's like real young, or at least hasn't been in much since she was acting. I guess I don't know.
Oh wow. But yeah, we're clearly gonna get this situation, which I think benefits CW because they can set their own pace and not have people go like, oh, they messed that up from the books because they just ran Crisis into the ground. But we're clearly gonna be getting that popped out before New Gods.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with that. Do you want to hear the character synopsis? Because like, this is some OP stuff, man.
Run it.
So the character is described as an effortlessly cool and confident high school student who is the adopted daughter of doting parents. Popular with all the kids in her military town, Naomi is unafraid to embrace her AP student, comic book loving nerdiness. After a supernatural event leads to the discovery of her powers within, Naomi pursues her hidden destiny. I mean, this sounds like... Did you ever read Ironheart?
No, I was finna say, and I was like, if I was one of these real snobby YouTube guys that gets kind of triggered by certain stuff, I was saying how everything's going with social, political agendas and whatnot. I'd be like, oh, great. It sounds like the black version of Captain Marvel.
I mean, it might be. I don't know. I don't know Captain Marvel's backstory that well.
But it's interesting. I think I checked out her comic.
Oh, it already debuted?
Yeah, they had a couple issues. A few issues. She had like a little mini run. I checked it out. It was cool. I don't know how cool it'll be in live action, but I do trust Ava DuVernay. She's put out quality content. Not everything is hit, but she's been far more hit than miss. So
is she the one writing the character for the comic?
No, I just know she's over the show.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so. We'll see what they do, but that's gonna be interesting. Like we got that on the horizon. I think you've seen the thing for the Powerpuff Girls.
I have not, and I don't know if I want to. Brian Michael Bendis created the character, so already I'm turned off by it.
No. Oh my God, I'm already tipped.
So the Ironheart story. The character's introduced as a super genius 17-year-old college kid who's smarter than Tony Stark. Because, of course, we always have to one-up one another in comics. I don't know why. And her entire backstory is, like, she goes to her teacher and she's like, I want to be a billionaire like Tony Stark. And the teacher's like, all right, no, that's a lofty goal you have to work hard for, but you can do it. And the girl, Ironheart, Riri Williams, is like, no, you're supposed to tell me I can't. And she's like, You can. She's like, no, you have to tell me I can't. She's like, you obviously can. She's like, well, no, you have to tell me I can't do something that I can obviously do. And she's like, all right, you can't be more rich than Tony Stark. And she's like, well, I'm going to do that. And I'm like, what is this glad-handing bullshit? And I feel like that's what this is going to be. I don't know, man. Like, I just miss the whole, like, hey, I'm an alien and you all don't like me. Can I help you anyway story? Like, I love that comics are trying to be like layered upon layered upon layered upon layered upon layered upon layered upon layered. You don't need that many layers. As human beings, we're not that deep. We got like 3 levels to us, and the end game boss is usually a pizza.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting watching them trying to possibly, create a character, create all these characters that a lot of people they want to be reading comics look like, with all these new age punk rock looking emo. Bob is saying, not saying that that's across the board because everybody's different, but them trying to cater to the audience. Like I think I seen something weird with like a new Captain America design the other day, um, and stuff. And I get it, but I feel like you like do that with newer characters. Don't turn Captain America to an emo kid or something like that. Nobody, yeah.
I'm emo America, and I'm gonna make you sad. Teen Steve Rogers just sitting in the corner going, "You don't know my pain, man. They put a needle in my arm, and I became 6'4". I liked being 4'11".
Like I like Wednesday Adams as much as the next person, but I like Wednesday Adams as Wednesday Adams. I don't need that archetype as Black Widow.
Right? Like, nah, I'm good. Oh, you're gonna make Peter Parker into an emo dancing nerd? All right, no, I'd watch that. Doing the little dance. Spider-Man 3 is a terrible comic book movie. It's an amazing comedy, though. The part that I always laugh at is, I think like it was Harry was like manipulating Mary Jane at the pie shop, and she leaves. And then the waitress comes by and she's like, "How's the pie, sir?" And he's just with a mouthful of pie. So good. So good.
Yeah, that really was that actor's time to shine. He really did that. That was some good stuff in that movie.
Speaking of good stuff, we can't say that anymore about Kylie Ray because we don't know what she's going to be doing. Although she is coming back, maybe, probably not. We don't know. Warrior Wrestling, or whatever it's called, out of Chicago, announced that she's coming back to defend her women's championship. And I'm kind of sitting here going, why would anyone hire her again? I understand mental illness is the trendy thing to always be worried about, and everyone's super cautious around it. No one wants to be the guy who's offensive or says the wrong thing. But at a certain point, you have to admit that it's an excuse for bad behavior. She's allowed it to ruin her career more than one time. She keeps things private so people just assume what's going on around her. And I know people are like, well, you shouldn't do that. But that's the thing. You can't scream at the world and go, well, you shouldn't be that way when it is that way. It is not up to you to try to change how 7 billion people act. It is up to you to try to navigate the world as it is. Maybe you can change it as you're doing it, but at the end of the day, the circumstances of the situation are what they are. And you either adapt to them or you leave them. And she's left. And I don't have a problem that she's left. I understand why she left. I worked at a job. And I won't go into the details because if I did, I'd have to make some haughty accusations that I don't want to make. But I worked at a comedy club for a week. It was the worst experience of my life. And I was not exactly in a stable environment as a child. So keep that in mind. I was gone. I wasn't going to adapt to the situation. It was terrible. So I left. There's nothing wrong with that. But with this, it's just, I don't think this industry is right for her. And she's going to come back and she's going to leave again because either she hasn't gotten a control of whatever her illness or anxieties are, and it's going to manifest themselves again. And I don't know why anyone would want to sit through that. I want her to be healthy. I want her to be happy. I want her to have the best life possible. No judgments. But at a certain point in time, you've proven yourself to be unreliable. This is no different than addiction. I wouldn't bring someone on who has a history of no showing events because they're doing drugs. I would not have this. I would have the same type of hesitation to bring in someone who has a mental affliction that keeps them from doing their job. You can sit here and go, well, they're sick. It's not their fault. And you're right, it's not. But at the end of the day, this is a business, not a charity. And if you keep bringing someone in who has a history of disrespecting people by not showing up, by canceling, by throwing plans all around and just tanking things that were built around you, you have to understand that people are not going to want to work with you. And I don't know why Warrior Wrestling is getting back into the proverbial bed with her, so to speak. But I would say that it's ill-advised. And if it does start this comeback, I can promise you it's going to end just like all her other ones did. She's just not suited for the industry. I hope she does well. I hope I'm proven wrong. I'm not too big of a man to say, well, it just won't never happen. Maybe she finally does have a hand on it. But as the old saying goes, the best indicator for future action is past behavior. The only thing that we have about Kylie Rae's past is that she's unreliable. And it's not like, a new thing. We said this about Jeff Hardy. We said this about Sean Waltman. We said this about Scott Hall. It's now her turn because she has become the unreliable person of the industry. I'm scared for her to an extent. Like I got maybe not scared, but I there's empathy on my end. Like I don't want her to suffer, but on the other hand, it's also like she's done nothing over the last 3 years to change the issues in her life or to get a grip on her life. So why would this now be different? Maybe it is, but as they say, show me. Like you can tell me all you want. You can say that you've changed, but only until you've actually proven it through action will I believe you. Do you have the same trepidation?
Yeah, I mean, just because, obviously we, to the good folks listening, man, obviously, don't necessarily get too emotionally attached with how you feel with mental health. To what things Chad said, he's just being real, Like you said, the best judgment for, future behavior is what you've done in the past. And with her, it's not like what happened this last time was the first instance of that. And, it's a real thing. We hear from wrestlers that don't take breaks all the time about how mentally and emotionally taxing the business is. And that's for people who don't necessarily have those mental hurdles. So, they had to, like, we saw what it did to Sasha. She had to leave. She was like at the point, like, she's like, I was looking in the mirror and I didn't even recognize myself because I was consistently not even rocking my real hair. So, I'm cautious. I wonder, though, do you think that they would bring, because obviously you could just strip her, but do you think they would bring her back just to have her, like, drop the title in a way that wouldn't necessarily be bad for PR, I guess?
Well, I don't think, like, if you're Warrior Wrestling and you're bringing her in, I don't think there's any obligation to have her win. I don't think, as much as wrestling has changed in the last 2 years, I don't think it's become a grouping of people who just want to see the downtrodden always succeed. I don't think we've achieved that level of, I don't know what the proper word is, but I don't think we've become that much of a everyone participates, gets a trophy kind of society within wrestling. I don't think we've gotten there. So I think as long as she's handled in a way that's dignified, maybe she loses like, Gail Kim, when she lost to Tessa, I don't think people would have a problem with it. But if they go the whole route with like how Alita lost, I think that's where the problem would come in. So it's like, as long as things are, in a good place, I think fans would be fine either way. My hope for her is that she comes out of this fine and that she's in a better place and that she's stronger or more fortified or whatever the hip buzzword is for mental illness strength. But I'm concerned that she's not. And I there's a part of me that wonders or is more concerned about if she keeps coming back. Because, like, think about it. Every time this has happened to her, it's been worse, more or less. She had a couple matches on AEW, got signed, and then had like 1 or 2 more matches, and then, she got let go. And then she came back 2 months later. And then she went to Impact, and she was having this great run, and everyone loved her, and she was set to have a title match with Deonna Purrazzo at Bound for Glory. At least I think it was Purrazzo for Bound for Glory. And then she leaves, like, she no-shows. They couldn't find her. She wasn't answering anyone. She quits, or maybe she doesn't get quit or quit. but like she's like 2 days before the event, she's like, I can't do this, and then we don't see her for 15 months. What's the next time gonna look like? Like I'd be horrified if this happens again, because we've already seen a stark progression in how she handles these things, and this isn't meant to be some type of like finger in the face, what's wrong with you kind of situation. This is more me explaining to you all listening that there has to be trepidation with her return, because she's proven that there is something that does not gel with her when it comes to the wrestling industry. Maybe it was dealing with certain people she had issues with. That's something we should keep in the back of our mind, because some of the people she worked with were like Joey Ryan. Maybe working with him was a problem. It's a hypothetical. There is no proof to the contrary or to support it. I'm just saying, she worked with a lot of dudes and probably dudettes who weren't good people, and who knows if that was a underlying factor for some of her issues. Look at AEW. All we gotta do is go Sammy Guevara, and we know there's people on there. Fucking Jimmy Havoc. We don't know if these kinds of people, not specifically that anything happened, but we don't know if the people that are in these industries that we still need to weed out are part of the factors in her mental health. And if it is, then maybe she's set for a better run, because that's no longer an issue. But if it's not those kinds of people, and if it's just her anxiety and her self-doubt, then we've seen that this is a profession that wears on her quite hard, and I don't know if coming back is the right plan for her. It's not my life though. I can't make that decision for her. I'm just trying to add some context to this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you, man. I want to do nothing but succeed and thrive, and she's obviously a great talent. Looks to be just from what we've seen on TV, a decent young lady. A lot of people have had some good stuff to say about her, but sometimes, man, like you were talking about with that job, man, sometimes you got to get away from stuff that just no longer serves you. Life goes in phases and stages, and this might not be a stage where the thing that she loves is loving her. And like I said, you've seen this in different instances with her, and I don't know. And also, people heal in different ways, and take different times to do it, but. You just you try to be cautiously optimistic, but more so cautious, because you kind of waiting for the proverbial rug to be pulled from under you as a viewer. You don't want it to be pulled from under her, because it could be far more detrimental. But it's just weird. I mean, I don't envy her at all. That dichotomy of the thing you love to do the most is being an impediment to your mental stability. That has to suck, especially when you feel like this is the one thing that you're the best at in life. You don't necessarily have a fallback plan. So I don't envy her at all. Like you said, wish the best, want to be proven 100% wrong. Maybe, I don't, not to make any type of joke out of it, but maybe, fourth or fifth time's the charm. That's kind of just life. So, we'll see.
And that's a solid point of view. Sometimes when you're in the middle of doing something, whatever it is, you know what you're supposed to do, but for whatever reason, you don't do it. Just kind of like a for instance, when I played football, one of the things that I knew how to do was all of the stunts to get around an offensive lineman. But when I would go into games, all I would do is bull rush or try to do a spin move. And I don't know why that was the case. But then eventually I realized I'm quicker than you, I'm stronger than you, and I got the leverage on you. So I'm going to just come up underneath your arm, grab you by your shoulder pad, and yank you off your feet. And all of a sudden, I was doing pretty well. But it took me 2 years to put that together in my head. Now, that's not a mental illness. That's not, dealing with anxiety. That's just kind of figuring out what works and what doesn't. But it's, for instance, that maybe she's found a new coping mechanism that will serve her better going forward. I hope that's the case, but you got to wonder if, that this is something that can be dealt with in a healthy manner. When she originally retired, this is what she said. I'm truly sorry for the pain I've caused and miscommunication. I am currently unwell. I am also sorry that I wasn't able to get this out before your monthly subscription charge, because this was posted on her Patreon. I wanted to take this time to say I'm no longer a professional wrestler, and I'm currently taking a break from social media. It's been a hard decision to make, but please understand. When I am well, I will try to fulfill any obligations that have been missed. During this time, most tiers will not be able to be fulfilled. Please feel free to unsubscribe from this membership Patreon account. Thank you for understanding. So, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I do wish her nothing but the best. This isn't meant to be a Jim Cornette hot take. It's just perception, perspective, and a little bit of kind of understanding of what this story is going to turn into as time goes on, one way or another. So here's hoping, but we'll see.
Yep.
We'll see. Next up, we got what do we got? We got Sacrifice. Rich Swann defeated the Moose to unify the Impact and TNA World Championships for some reason. I guess whatever. It is what it is. And next up is Kenny Omega at what is it? Rebellion. I figured it out. So with this, Marcus, we talked about it, me and Zach, last night, the entire show, but I want to hear your thoughts on the title change, Rich Swann, Kenny Omega, all that. Just go off. Let me know how you feel about what's coming here with Swann and company.
Yeah, man. First off, shout out to you and Zach, always covering the stuff. I'm gonna go back and listen to that, but yeah, I really enjoyed the show. I mean, this was such a needed palate cleanser coming off of Revolution, and this wasn't even an actual pay-per-view. So kudos to Impact. Probably one of the better shows in recent memory, top to bottom. And when it comes to the Swann, you said it on Twitter that main event was astounding. And when I think about it, because I think we talked about it on like last week's show or whatever. Like when you kind of look at, because obviously Lashley, is adding himself to a certain lineage when it's come to being black and being a world champion. And going back to the Kofi thing, I think the difference between why this is working with Swann and why it didn't necessarily work with Kofi in terms of the run is because it feels like Swann is picking up steam in his run. And I think a lot of that has to I mean, in both guys' cases, the talent is undeniable.
Yeah.
Concerted effort to make his feuds and matches count. Like it felt like with Kofi, and I love the guy. Don't get me wrong, but it's hard to go against that book, and they feel like they just lined up guys to have him beat to add some validity to the reign. But you don't remember the run. You remember the lead up to the run, and you remember the loss. Certainly, with this, there's so much passion built up, even with the stuff with EY building up to it, which was kind of wonky because even with all the spirit and passion they put into it, you kind of saw the writing on the wall. But that feud with EY, the selling, going to stuff between him and Edwards, even obviously Callahan, now Moose, that little quick he had with Dreamer, all this stuff feels like it matters. Feels like it's not just being thrown up in there. And like I said, he delivers in the ring, and like I said, it feels like this reign. He's made a fan out of me even more so with this reign because it feels like the booking is building up to how he's growing in the ring, which is crazy because he's already a crazy talent. But yeah, the match was phenomenal. Both of those guys are nuts. Some of the stuff they did in that match, like that springboard coming off the rope to hit a cutter, the timing on that was sick. That moonsault fall away slam that Moose pulled off was nasty. Like these two have to link up again. I think the greatest part of this match was like the fact that he won, but it's kind of like the Rocky thing. When like I gotta face him again. His trainer was like, "What are you talking about? Like, look, man, you like I saw this guy. Like you gave him everything in the kitchen sink, and he just kept chugging. He was like, I won, but I didn't beat him. And it feels like Swann won, but he didn't beat him. And I think that only helps and shows like the continuity and the little nuances in the booking because you can't just build up Moose the way they've been building him up and then have him like definitively beaten, kind of just thrown all the way back to the end of the line. Like he's the next guy, but narratively throwing Omega in there is an interesting wrench because he's like that all-purpose villain right now. Specifically to a company like Impact, where it's like, regardless of like who you guys are, or whatever, I'm the big fish. You're the little pond. I'm coming to visit. Feel good. that the big fish is acknowledging the little guppies, and that's basically what he did for Swann when he didn't let him come on the bus or whatever that was that time. So, it's a really cool thing. I could easily see it devolving into a triple threat type of scenario down the line. Um, I'm just hoping that Omega doesn't take the title because we finally got the damn tag belts off the Good Brothers. So, even though it's not definitively Impact Tag Team, I still feel good about it. So, you know,
I think I
it's
think
just,
one of the things that you touched on that I really want to expand on is when he won the belt. Neither one of us, I'm sure you were happy because you were kind of a Swann guy beforehand, but neither one of us really thought that he was a quote unquote main eventer when he won. We kind of said
yeah,
that this was a very much a hot shot kind of idea. Looking at what ended up happening, I think there were plans in place back when they did Bound for Glory of working with AEW. So the idea was to get Swann in there. I think what he's been doing is kind of a better conclusion to what WWE did with CM Punk. When Punk first won the world title in 2008, he wasn't really given a lot. And the idea was to raise him from a mid-card, upper mid-card guy to a main eventer with that title run. It didn't work, at least in the eyes of Vince, so they took it off. But I think this time around, same kind of idea. First-time world champion, mid-card guy, getting the belt. Let's see what happens. They've done a much better job with him. I think they did the second Callahan feud after Bound for Glory, if I remember correctly. Then he was doing stuff with Moose. I think he wrestled Ace Austin for the title at one point. So they're giving him
yeah,
opportunities to showcase how good he is.
yeah,
And they're letting his talent in the ring speak for him. I still think one of the things he needs to do is update his attire. I think he looks too much like his Cruiserweight Championship days. And I want to see something
yeah,
more regal-esque, something more unique. But that's a minor gripe, and I think the rest of his work has really elevated him. I still don't know if I would build a company around him. I still wouldn't say he's the ace of the company or the face of the company, but he's done enough
yeah,
that I think a match with Kenny Omega could be enticing just off of his in-ring work alone.
yeah. Absolutely. I mean, like I said, the reason why I compared them to Kofi because they both of those guys that were superbly talented, but kind of lesser looked at guys in terms of not only stick, but they simply got thrown into the opportunity because we saw what happened. We know what happened with Kofi. He replaced Mustafa, and then they got the ball rolling because they saw something they could capitalize on it, and obviously Rich got thrown into that match, but it worked out so well because he essentially the only reason why the world championship came into it is because it was on EY.
Mm-hmm.
Um, not because it was like, oh, all of a sudden Swann's gonna be that guy. It was on EY, and I was right there with you initially when they took it off Edwards because it meant more for. I mean, obviously we're Edwards guys, but it meant so much to have somebody with Edwards' tenure in the company, his loyalty to the company, and his potential to finally get that title, that world title back, coming off of everything that went down with Tessa.
Mm-hmm.
Like it just fit better, and we wanted him obviously to get a run with it, and just narratively it made sense. And obviously, like you said, all he kind of needed to do was kind of tone up. But essentially, he's also one of those guys that you can always count on, and I think Swann is becoming one of those guys. But we were shaky on it at first, but like you said, I think he's constantly proving himself and running into guys like Callahan, who is another all-purpose villain. Trey Miguel is finding that out firsthand, and building somebody up like Moose, who has been absolutely phenomenal in this new role. Um, it's just been like I said, the best proving ground, and even that match he had with um, why am I forgetting his name? Chris Bay.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like that. Like he's yet to miss. I've yet to see a Swann match that like, even with Dreamer, I was like, okay, that sucked. So
I think the
he's
Dreamer
doing he's
match
doing
may be
some.
one of my favorites. Like not just of Swann's run, but of the year. It was such a brilliant, competitive, thought out, psychological match.
Yeah,
I think a lot of
yeah,
that had
because
to do with
it
Swann.
it played. Yeah, because it very much played to the ability difference without making Dreamer look less than.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously Dreamer's the veteran, so and would imagine Swann has never had a problem selling for his opponents. He's one of the best in terms of that. So it just when you got guys that are that willing to collaborate, it just works. And Swann is like another one of those guys like Callahan. You hit him right, he's slobbering, spitting. I'm like, just like somebody get him a bip. Like on Speed, I need a bip.
All right, so let's see. Last up, I think, is the Jim Cornette situation.
Yes.
I've always kind of believed that we as a podcast are commentators. We're supposed to give context and details to a situation that maybe people aren't realizing, or maybe people are looking past, or maybe people just don't care about. We talk a lot of topics that are, fringe in terms of, is it appropriate, is it not? Everything we talk about, though, is generally something that I think is important to put out there, even if it's for people to say, well, I disagree with you. Because I'm fine with that. I'm not fine with being assaulted and belittled because y'all don't like, there's certain opinions. But if you don't agree, that's fine. That's part of the entire concept of this show is we're giving you those opinions that you may not agree with to see just where the truth of the matter may lie. But there are things that we don't say. We will gush over pretty girls. We like pretty girls. Pretty girls are fun. They're pretty. They smell nice. But there's a line that you don't cross. You don't cross the line. We're not TNA in 2009. We ain't crossing shit. Because their slogan used to be "Cross the line." So I'm just. Jim Cornette went on a tirade, and half of it wasn't wrong. He starts off by saying Miro is essentially being misused in AEW, and that he's making himself kind of. He said a joke, I think. He's like, Miro is making himself look like a joke. I don't think a joke is the right way to phrase it, but Miro is definitely not being utilized to his best potential. So I agreed with that. All right. But then he's like, then Kip Sabian looks like a 12-year-old and his slutty girlfriend. And I'm like, what? So Miro, of course, responds with, next time you're in an alleyway, I'm going to be above you Spider-Man style and you ain't going to see it coming. Who's there? Miro. Wait, who's that? I'm like Batman, but from Bulgaria. Then he just launched the dude into the air. So Miro is coming at him. Kip Sabian, I think, said something. What is Kip Sabian's girlfriend's name?
Something Ford.
Penelope Ford, that's what it is. Thank you. Penelope.
Yeah, it is.
She said something, and then a lot of people started, and this is where I have a problem. If you're a jackass, and you're going to say things like, quote-unquote, slutty girlfriend when you're talking about a woman, I'm not fine with it, but whatever. Where my grits get overcooked, shout out to the South,
Hey.
is when you start lying about it. He's like, I didn't say she was slutty, and like all his little cronies on social media, like he never said she was slutty. And then I went and read the transcript, and it's and his slutty girlfriend. I'm like, he called her slutty. Like, that's an adjective. Do you not know how this works? If I call Marcus my short friend Marcus, and then he goes, "Why'd you call me short?" I'm like, I didn't say you were short. I didn't call you short. I said you were short. Like, there's no real syntactual difference. I don't know, man. What, like, Jim Cornette, man, like, what the fuck happened to you?
Yeah, it's weird. Like it's because I remember we talked some time back, like when that whole thing went down when that guy JD from New York said something about who that was, Alexa Bliss, and the internet jumped on it.
Yeah, what did he like? He said something like, she's only because she's a slut or something like that.
Yeah, but basically equated to her maybe sleeping her way to all these positions,
Oh, okay.
and that takes it out around. Like, I don't know if that's exactly what it was, but he definitely made a inference to something he couldn't stand on because he doesn't know the woman behind the character. And I think with Cornette, Cornette's just so off the mark anyway that he probably chunks up what he said to just simply aesthetic. Well, I mean, look how she's dressed. It's slutty, and in this day and age, that's not gonna fly. Um, you also implying something that you can't, rather, regardless of how that character dresses, that's not that character on that show.
Mm-hmm.
She's always been with Kip Sabian, so if she is a slut, she's exclusive, and but it's in whatever context he was trying to say that in, but it's just again, it's never gonna come out right coming from him because he never comes off like he's coming from a genuine place.
Mm-hmm.
Like the only thing he stands on at this point is the fact that he's been in the business in certain instances for all these years, and this is a huge part of his life. But in so many different ways, he's out of touch. He's definitely out of touch from a racial perspective. He's out of touch in a lot of ways from a business perspective in terms of how it's evolved. Obviously, certain things aren't necessarily broken, need to be fixed, but at the same time, this stuff is evolving so fast right before our eyes that you kind of do have to go with the flow. And he is a rebel against a lot of these flows, and it's understandable. But it's like, how much is this stuff gonna move you? Like, how many of these, you know, molehills are you gonna turn into mountains because it just vexes your soul so much? He kind of reminds me of these anti-Snyder people. But it's because it's like this really the hill you want to down. Like, you don't even know the guy. You just going off, what you see there, and then making a complete inference to what this person may be from their soul. And I get it, but it's bad. And the fact that I really don't think Miro was playing either. I don't think a lot of these wrestlers be playing. I always take it at absolutely no face value from the fans because I'm like, y'all talking all this stuff about Meltzer. I'm still waiting on that, by the way. Like, I'm still waiting on that League of Assassins hit that they used to put out on him. But ironically, everybody went back the next day asking for his rating for whatever match had gone on the pay-per-view. So it's just he's just continuously out of touch. And the fact that the saddest part about it is he's committed to remaining to continuing to be out of touch. So you can't do it.
And that's the thing that really bothers me is like, when we criticize Eddie, for, not being in the same shape he used to be, it's not intended to deflate him as a human being because his worth as a man, as a father, as a husband outweighs his worth as a wrestler. But we are critics of this industry and we need to criticize appropriately and honestly. And we need to be consistent because if we, for whatever reason, give people we like passes, then we lose credibility. We lose our integrity. I will not be someone without integrity. I've made that decision a long time ago in my life. I need to be someone that when I say something, it's not because specifically this person, it's because this is the ideal that I think works. And I think in wrestling, the better shape you're in, not the body. I'm not worried about how you look. I'm worried about the shape, the endurance, the athleticism. The better shape you're in, the better wrestler you are. That's not a disputable fact. That's quantifiable. I can prove that. But that's my stance on everyone. And it's uniformly applied. I don't, chop it up and deliver it to different people when I don't like them. Cornette does that. More to the point of he says things that he knows aren't even true and he does not care. And if he says something that he's wrong about, he never apologizes, backtracks, retracts, or makes amends. He doubles down. So he loses credibility. He loses his integrity. And the worst part is, like, he's kind of like Charles Barkley of wrestling. He does say some obtuse things, but they're always honest. They're always, at least in the point of Barkley, true. They may not be popular, but our job isn't to be liked. It's to be honest. So when I hear Cornette say these things, like when he was criticizing Miro for not being the guy he could be in this company, that's a great criticism because he's not. He is a lower mid-card guy in a dead act with no interest in him. Oh, he's feuding with Chuck Taylor? Who cares? This dude rolled out on a tank in WrestleMania to beat up John Cena. Granted, he lost because lol, Cena wins, but now he's, wrestling a 180-pound, no-muscle, 40-year-old who's a comedy wrestler at best. Like, really? Like, that's how far Miro has fallen? Jesus Christ. And it's not like it's building him up. It's a go-nowhere feud. It's a time-killer feud. So criticizing him is 100% inbound. And it's not so much even him, it's Tony Khan because he's the head booking. But then when you start insulting Penelope Ford for no reason other than you think she dresses scantily.
Yeah.
Like, if you were, like, a hardcore Christian conservative, like, if Caprice Coleman, who I don't know if he's conservative or not, but I know he's a hardcore Christian, if Caprice Coleman goes, I think, Penelope Ford is dressing too provocatively for our audience because I think we should be catering to families, not just, people who like naked women. You'd understand that coming from Caprice Coleman because he's I think he's like a pastor or I don't know which religion has what. He's a church leader is essentially what he is.
Yeah.
So, like, all right, that makes sense. Like, I could see Caprice Coleman making that, that comment.
Yeah.
But Jim Cornette has a long-standing history of using scantily clad women for shows, having wrestlers allegedly sleep with his wife. It'd be like Larry Flint saying, I don't know, man, Playboy's just too risque. You're Larry Flint. If there's anyone more depraved and debaucherous than Hugh Hefner, it's you.
Yo.
So that's kind of where I'm at with Jim Cornette. Like, you say dumb shit all the time, and you have no credibility anymore. Even when you make points that are honest. Like Miro.
Yeah, even when you make points that have credibility to them, because like you said, him judging, what Miro is on our roster, which is fair because he can say what he is all he wants to, but when we see him on the show, it's something different. So obviously believe in yourself, but it's like I saw people because basically MJF popped off a coup inside of the inner circle. So now it's MJF, Wardlow, the Dax, and
it's FTR, right?
FTR, and
the chairman,
Tessa's dad, and Sean Spears, and everybody was like, "Yay! It's all these guys and Sean Spears," because MJF basically was like, he's the most the talented guy that's never had a chance to show it, and people was like, "All right, MJF, you get him over, you really are the best mic worker." Like it's people know what it is, and Jim, he has made some valid points, but like you said, he's ran his own credibility so much into the ground because he, what was that great line that that Jake had that year when he was in the ring with Randall, and he was like, "I think you need to something with your mouth and your damn, I'm about to butcher this. It's something because you're out of your ass." Something he said, but that's basically what he does, and it's getting old, and he's clearly an older guy that's stuck in his very out of date ways, and he feels like he still has the credibility, and everybody has freedom of speech, but he feels like his opinion matters more than a lot of these guys who are making new ways for themselves in a business that I think has very much evolved far beyond him at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just sad.
And that's not to say that some of his ideas for how to book are wrong anymore, because a lot of them still hold water. The problem is he's going about it in a way where it's nothing that's new is good and everything that was old is better, when that's not true. The idea of booking slowly and across months and not throwing the same 14 matches out every month is a good idea. But you can't go and to such the extremes that he always talks about, because things have changed. Like, you have to adapt. You can't force the audience to like something. You have to adapt to what they do like. That's life. Here's the thing. When he was in the 80s, there were fans from the 60s going, that's not wrestling. So you have to be aware of that. Like, we've been fans since, Marcus, you were what, late 90s, early 2000s you got into it?
Yeah.
I was early 90s. So I've been watching for 30 years, 3 decades. I'm 34. You're 28?
29.
29. Oh, you're going to be 30 this year. Uh-oh.
Yeah, man.
Uh-oh. June 11th. Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Oh, no. You're going to become curmudgeon like I did. Hey, you kids, get off my lawn!
Like, welcome to my world, Yost.
You're in my world now, Yost. I do not dance if I don't hear music, and I will not be intimidated. So it's one of those things where things have changed. We've seen wrestling change. We've seen at least 4 distinct eras of wrestling in our lifetimes. Things change, man. You got to adapt. More than that, you got to not be such a prick. Like with the Kylie conversation, I tried to be as non-prick-like as possible. Because at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is her health. Nothing else. That's how I feel about everything in wrestling. At the end of the day, none of this matters. Unless you're healthy and you can go home to your family. But Cornette feels like this is war, almost. He sees this as a situation where if we don't do it this way, everyone dies. And I don't understand that logic. Like, man, I write about sports, I criticize sports. I write about entertainment, I criticize entertainment. I talk about wrestling, I criticize wrestling. But at the end of the day, it's only because of the instances of how these people fit in this subject. Very rarely do I go outside the bounds of their professions. So I don't know why Cornette feels that the way he talks about people is appropriate. It's not. It's absolutely not. It is offensive, it's belligerent, and it's rude. And again, I grew up in a household where I was taught to be respectful. You know, mind my P's and Q's. Tell the truth, but do it in a way that is as honest and unconfrontational as possible. Because there is no prize for being a prick in public. Like you don't all of a sudden get you're the biggest dude bro award. Congratulations, here's $1 million. And Cornette constantly tries to do that. But granted, so do a lot of people in wrestling. Like look at Vince Russo, and I think that's where part of Cornette's entire history was emboldened by was people hated Russo for his booking and for a lot of his views. That's fair. But Cornette started to really, come down on him, and all of a sudden it gave like an entire segment of wrestling fans like, oh my God, Jim Cornette must be such a great guy if he's calling out Vince Russo because no one likes Vince Russo. We all hate him, and he keeps getting a job, and Cornette doesn't like him, so that means we should all like Cornette. But the thing is when you're threatening to kill someone because you don't like how fictional characters are being written, you're not the hero in that conversation. That's like going, yeah, Hitler bad, but Stalin ain't better. Just because Hitler had a more evil symbol doesn't mean Stalin didn't kill more people of his own people. You're not going to flock to Soviet Russia and be like, oh man, Nazis were bad, but at least we're not in Nazi land anymore. But you're still in the Soviet Union, and that's still terrible, and it's almost as bad, if not worse, than Naziville. And that's how I feel about Russo and Cornette. You both suck. You're both the worst examples of wrestling critics that have ever existed. You shouldn't have fans on either side, and yet they are emboldened by these people. And I'm sitting here going, we get like 100 views a week. That's cool.
Yeah, and the funniest thing is they're both each their biggest fan of themselves.
Yep, and each other's biggest critic. Yeah, they are forever wrapped in this timeline of suck.
Yeah, it's weird, man. You kind of look at, they are, I think, 2 glaring examples of what a lot of the internet has sadly become.
Mm-hmm.
And from the entertainment, with, like I said, with this Snyder stuff, like it's so many people that taste. Because I've kind of tried to match some stuff up in my head, as I get older. It's like certain things, man, feel personal, but it's really not.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's personal, but it's not personal. Like, you taking a mental health week or something and being like, look, man, we just can't do no shows. You telling me that we can't do no shows. It's personal for you, but it's not personal against us. And I think a lot of people can't, separate the two. Because if it makes me feel a way, then obviously it's against me. Like they're solely pointing this at me, and I think that's a lot of the internet, and I get it. It's even worse now because emotions are all over the place with the quarantine and everything. But a lot of people just don't know how to, like you said, divide it. So with Cornette, because he has such a defined viewpoint of how wrestling should needs to always be, a la how like a lot of some of these people feel about Superman or Batman and these other DC characters. They got them so locked into this one perception that anything against is like a personal assault on them, on their character as a person. It's like you do not have the emotional stability to be doing what you think you're doing right now.
I
And
saw,
it's
not to jump on
yeah.
you, but I'm running out of battery on my computer, and I wanted to say this because it parallels so well with what you just said. I saw a tweet today, and I don't know why, but the original tweet was something like, some people's personalities just don't mesh with y'all, or something like that. And like the top comment was, Twitter just discovered not liking someone.
So perfect, man.
And it's like, so many people don't know how to interact anymore because of social media. And Cornette and Russo are like just beholding these people to say outlandish things. I think the most outlandish thing we said today is, we don't know if Kylie Ray is ready to come back. Oh my God, we're evil. But some people are like, so-and-so should kill themselves because they're ruining wrestling. And I'm like, what? Wow. Like, y'all need to take a breather, man. It ain't that serious.
We talk about, man, we love it. We have, back and forth relationships with it at times because of how invested we've been. But at the end of the day, we don't lose no sleep over this stuff.
Nope.
And a lot of you clearly do. And
Nope.
that's, like I said, man, that you got sometimes that separation of church and state is that line between you being a nutbag and, the other thing, man, sanity and, that other place, man. It's a thin line sometimes.
Sometimes you feel like a nut, sometimes you are. That would not be a good slogan for a candy bar commercial. I'm just saying. All right. So with all that said, Marcus, is there anything else that you want to touch on before we close out for the night?
No, man, I think that was it.
Did I lose you?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that was it for me.
All right. Well, then with that being said, I need to run to my charger because my computer's like, hey, dude, you're about to die. But my cord got wrapped around a chair, and it's a comedy now. It's a cartoon comedy. All right. And we are plugged in. Okay. So with that being said, let's wrap up the show. This has been the Wrestling Underground podcast. I've been Chad Porter. You can find me on Twitter at ChadNerdCorp and on the Instagram at Chad's Photo Hut. Marcus can be found on Twitter at ParadoxKid, ParadoxKid.
That's me.
You can also find him on his other podcast, The True Penny Show, TruePennyShow, on Twitter. Check that out. They cover wrestling on that one as well. Website's realnerdcorp.com. We're going to have Making an Impact and last weekend's Game Court up probably tonight and tomorrow morning. I'm so behind on posting. And I think that's about it. So from both of us here at Wrestling Underground, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for checking us out. Thanks for giving us a chance. We'll be back next Tuesday for another edition right here on twitch.tv/Wrestling Underground or by checking us out on the YouTube channel at twitch.tv/Wrestling Underground or The Wrestling Underground. So for Marcus Green, I'm Chad Porto. Thank you. Good night. Marcus, take us home.
Good night, me.